Awesome. So, hello everyone. My name is Qasim, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Remotebase and a new AI tool we've launched called Talently. So, we're super excited to have you all in this session. Which is synergizing skills, embracing AI as an HR superpower. So I'm sure all of you know how AI is transforming the world, how it's tapping into every single domain, changing how work is done. So this is like a session that I'm super excited about. On call we have Aaron Goldsmid, who is the head of product at Deel, and then we have Brandon Sammut, chief product officer at Zapier. So before we begin, would love like a quick intro from each of you. Aaron, do you want to start?
Sure. Aaron Goldsmid. Like I said, I'm head of product over at Deel, which is a global HR platform. I also look after our sort of data and AI portfolio. We've pushed really hard into that space and are really excited about what it is. And um, prior to this was at a company called Twilio, and yeah, excited to chat with y'all.
Awesome, thank you. And then Brandon, want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron, first of all, it's good to meet you. We are happy Deel customers over here at Zapier. Zapier is a no-code workflow automation platform where customers increasingly use AI with Zapier to take the tedious parts out of their jobs so that humans can spend more time doing the things that humans do best. As the chief people officer at Zapier, I'm accountable for scaling talent and culture and how we get work done across this business. We have about 800 folks on the Zapier team. We're an all remote company and have folks in 42 countries.
Amazing. So this is going to be super exciting. Firstly, thank you guys for joining us. So we're customers of Deel and Zapier both. So super excited. Plus, all three companies are remote, so it's going to be super exciting, especially with the impact of AI on HR and how that's going to transform. But I think a quick question before we dive deeper into everything. Quick question from each of you, like when is AI going to, take over all of our jobs? And do you think that's coming? Brandon, do you want to go first?
I've certainly thought about this a great deal and have talked about it with a lot of practitioners. The short answer is when. The question I ask is at what pace is AI going to transform our jobs? And when I think about the question that way, the answer is quickly. And in many cases, we may have all seen examples of how that's happening in the here and now. Whether or how AI replaces jobs over time, I mean, I think with any big technology change, I think the answer is yes. There are certain types of jobs that will become less done less by humans and more by computers over time. However, I think in the here and now, what's really interesting is the fact that AI can help us do the jobs we already have a whole lot better. I think there are a whole new wave of jobs, some of which we probably don't even have names for yet, that will be new, that will be created in a world in which AI is used by folks to get things done. And so a lot of open questions. I think a lot of understandable concerns about the role of AI and talent and the future of all of our jobs. But with like a lot of technology, I think there's a lot of promise in there too. And I think that's part of what interests so many of us in this topic.
Definitely. And on that topic, like a follow-up would be like, what kind of jobs, like what kind of people should be embracing AI the fastest, or like looking out for it? Like, we've seen chat tools like ChatGPT, Jasper, multiple other tools creating content, for example. So, content writers really need to leverage AI. But what other jobs are you seeing that, AI is either impacting or at least can help increase the productivity of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
you
Yeah,
go for it.
I was
I
gonna
think the
go.
thing is that I don't think, I think there are very few jobs where it won't impact. Um, I think our friends over at GitLabs got it right when they called their AI product Copilot, because I think that's like a really effective thing. So if you think about what's the job of a Copilot on a plane? I mean, yes, if the pilot has a heart attack, they like fly the plane, but for the most part, it's so that they manage the workload so that the pilot can have situational awareness and actually focus on the most important tasks at hand. If we think about any of our days, how much of our day is devoted to detritus of work, right? Like filling out a form or clicking on a thing or sort of just like just stuff that is not high leverage or high value. I think where it comes in is that work gets reduced. Humans still always, like, we have an AI manifesto about AI and HR, and in every case, the human is always the one making the decision, but it provides every human in the HR stack a ton of leverage.
Yep. So, Aaron, follow up on that. Do you think that's going to result in a massive shift between demand and supply? If one person can do the job of four people by leveraging AI, or two people, then does that mean that there's going to be less demand, or at least very high supply of whatever talent in different domains?
I mean, theoretically, yes, because that's how curves work. But I think more practically, what it's going to happen is that everyone is going to upgrade their HR practice materially, right? So the same, if you think about it, right, like every HR professional is spending more time and care on the complicated stuff, the stuff that matters, and improving the employee experience, solving complicated payroll problems, focusing on L&D. What you really see is, I think, where the hit is now is what's the long list of things that are no regrets good actions that every HR professional would want to implement within their organization but can't because they don't have the resources. So yes, I think that list now becomes real and viable. In theory, does that impact some potential staffing? Like, I think so, but I think for most companies, at least the ones that we work with, it's the needs are more than, upgrading their practice is way more interesting than trying to save a couple bucks because they see the ROI in it.
That totally makes sense. And then, like, traditionally, what people thought was that AI would replace like easy jobs, repetitive tasks. But now that we're seeing it, replace more creative jobs, like it can write a song or it can do all of this fun stuff. Do you feel like we need to start rethinking where to have AI as part of our workflows, considering that it's not just good at repetitive tasks that nobody would do, it's actually bad at those. It can't do 2 + 2 in some cases, but it can do more complex tasks in that. Brandon, do you want to take that?
Yeah, Qasim, the short answer is yes. Like, I think that our kind of expectations over where AI would be like most capable or helpful in many cases have been turned upside down, and the kind of creative potential of AI is really interesting. I also, even with that being said, agree with what Aaron said, which is that the way we're seeing it, particularly within our team at Zapier with some of our peers, is it's an incredible helper. And yes, it's helpful in ways that we didn't fully expect. It's an incredible helpful helper nonetheless. And what it's practically doing is it is broadening the scope of what our team is able to do in the business, and therefore the impact that we are having. So the size of my people team at Zapier, for example, like it's a very capable team. I hope to have everyone on that team working with us for years to come. And it's already like this. I'll give you a specific example. We have a brilliant total rewards leader at Zapier named Jocelyn, and she and her team have been using AI to like streamline and kind of just like increase the range of things that they're able to do. We had been we had on our backlog for a couple of years creating like a more robust wellness program for our 800-person team all over the world. And with some of the automation and AI work that the team's been doing, it's creating room, just like Aaron was describing, to pick up that work. And I think the simplest way I could put it is that every team, including every HR team, has a backlog. We have a list of things that we know would be impactful in the business or in the world, and we just can't get around to it yet. And AI used well can help free up, human potential to tackle those things.
Definitely. I think that's also a great segue into the next topic is like, how are you leveraging AI in your teams? So, of course, you've highlighted one example. What else is happening? Like, how are you integrating and making AI as part of your HR processes, or how is your talent in your organizations using it? Brandon, since you started with one example, would love to hear one or two more, and then would move to Aaron for the same question.
Sure. I'll share a category and then pass it right over to Aaron. So, one of the things that's hardest to scale purely with humans in a people or HR organization is anything related to coaching, right? It could be coaching, and you think about like kind of the core skills or competencies that matter in your organization. At Zapier, one of those is being able to give and get feedback really effectively. And why is that important? Well, because giving and getting feedback is part of our continuous improvement engine, right? Just like a lot of businesses, however well we're doing today, it's kind of less important than how quickly we're learning and building and growing, right? And feedback is part of the fuel that enables that continuous improvement engine to run. However, it's not a really easy thing to do. And one of the best modalities for helping people improve their feedback skills is through practice and coaching. You can read about it. You can read about a feedback model. That's a great place to start, but it's not a substitute for that type of coaching and practicing. And we've built effectively like a chat bot. And by the way, like what I'm about to describe, you can do, without needing to code. You can probably put it together if you have a feedback framework in your organization in 20 minutes and put it on your intranet or put it on a public website, whatever the case may be. And it's pretty darn helpful. So the way we've configured it within a very specific feedback model that we use at Zapier, and folks can bring a situation that's happening at work where they want to give feedback or where they've received feedback and they're trying to figure out how to like process and action on it. So no matter which way the feedback's moving, folks can get some help unpacking it or preparing to give the feedback, and can actually do some practice with the AI-powered chatbot. And there are two reasons why that's helpful. One, it helps scale our ability to upskill our team in that particular area. Two, there's consistency within the coaching. If you ask your manager, for example, like maybe they're amazing at giving feedback, or maybe they're still learning just like you are, right? And so we get more consistently strong coaching within that area. And last but not least, the thing that we've heard from some of our team members about having the availability of a bot rather than only being able to go do human is that sometimes something's a little sensitive. Sometimes you're not ready to ask for help, from a person yet, and you just kind of want to try it out some other way that's effective. And so that's something that I hadn't actually thought about until we started hearing it from our people, that I think is pretty promising when you think about both like access. Oh, by the way, and on top of everything we just talked about, if your first language isn't the primary language in the company where everything's written and you want to practice in your first language, like you can do that like pretty much instantly too using AI.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Especially I think in terms of chatbots, that's soon gonna turn from text-based to conversational very quickly, where you can actually talk to the AI, practice and stuff. Amazing. So Aaron, like same question, like how are you leveraging AI in your organization in terms of HR processes, or as an organization as a whole in terms of talent?
Yeah, we have a real unfair advantage in that we live our customers' problems. I mean, we have employees in over 100 countries. All across the world. And so, and we support our clients that have the same cover, 140 plus countries, right? And, this is a thing that we first look. So like, because we have to do that, we have to get good at compliance and tax and employment laws and norms and all of those countries, which is, to be blunt, insurmountable for any single human. Right? We have a large team of folks that do this. And so we started building infrastructure to build that knowledge base, which was, I think, pretty defensively, we'd say like the best compliance, employment, work knowledge base on the planet. And it's, these are not questions that you can go to Google for, or because getting the answer wrong is like quite bad. But if you look at and by the way, we built that to be consumed. Actually, we built it on top of the same infrastructure that Wikipedia is built on, which is surprisingly good at for indexing. I guess not that surprising. Kind of makes a lot of sense. But we built that originally for our internal operations organization to be able to field questions from our clients, and we got it good. and we got it good enough that, again, keeping that human in the middle, that it was, in a place to be able to directly expose to our clients. And I had a situation twice this week where I had one employee inform me that they're about to expand their family, so parental leave is in the works, and they're like, I was like, okay, remind me what country you live in, because I'm like, everyone's everywhere, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? I do not know off the top of my hand what the parental leave policy is in the Netherlands. Um, Also, my HRBP, who's awesome, also doesn't know that answer. And so they would have to go to a local person in market, or if you're a small organization, outside counsel. You just like, and if you're a small organization, that answer becomes like enough that you're like, I don't even want to deal with trying to hire internationally. If you're a large organization, it just takes a week or 2 weeks. Instead, I plopped the question in and I had an answer in sub-second, and we're like, oh, cool, this is what it is. And that was like what would have been something that would have caused a great worker to have like a good deal of anxiety for like a week while I was waiting to get an answer. Was like, oh no, this is great, everything's good. I had the same thing with like holiday rollover in the UK. I'm like, I have no idea. I live in San Francisco, right? Like, these were questions that were immediately onto that. And so, we got really good at it, and so much, and to solve for the cost of getting it wrong is high. So like when AI, hallucinates, two things. One is we point you to the source material every time you ask a question. So you can always validate it to the known vetted good source. And two, if you like give it a thumbs down or a low ranking, or there's a query we don't have a good answer to, we have a content creation team that has a 24-hour SLA to get you that answer and to publish that content. So it's been a real gift to us because we found all things that we weren't asking, right? And then, so much so that we then said, okay, what's the next version of this? And we're now able to apply the same intelligence to our clients' own data. So they're able to ask questions of its own organization. What's the average tenure of an SDR in Europe? Like, I would love to know that answer, but if I, in a small organization, that would just be like, oh, it's going to take me like hours. And life gets in the way. I'll go do something else. But now those questions are there. So the amount of insight you're able to drive and how you can improve your business in general, not just within the HR vertical, like, oh, what if I want to expand this team in Estonia versus Portugal? Right? Those are answers that you have almost immediately. And I think that's transformed how we operate as business, but it's also because our clients live our problems, we live our same problems as our clients. It's been able to transform their experiences as well.
Super interesting. So that also like, so that's like the way you're integrating AI into your organizations. But what about like some of the challenges? So for example, if you ask it legal or tax questions or holidays in Netherlands or something, and it hallucinates, is there something you're doing about it, or anything on that front?
Yeah. So I think I spoke to it probably a little too quickly. It always comes with the source material. Here is the link to the knowledge base page that has the lawyer vetted or HR professional from that market vetted content. And, also because we are not training it, we're doing the prompt engineering. No one has enough data to train up in this, but there isn't enough HR data on the planet to train an LLM. And anyone who says the contrary is probably not being direct with you. So like the prompt engineering we're doing is only off of a really known good set of data that has been vetted by professionals. And so the risk of hallucination goes lower. And we ran hundreds of thousands of queries internally by our own operations folks who were in the process of giving answers to our clients before we let a single client. And we got it good enough where like, we trust our clients to be able to make good decisions with this data. And we're always giving them the primary source material. So that's been how we solve it. I'm sure there's a couple different ways that work, but we feel really confident about it.
That's super interesting. Brandon, like same question. Any particular challenges you're facing people say AI can be a little bit biased because it's trained on data that might not be distributed across the globe, or it hallucinates, or OpenAI can throw gateway errors from time to time. Like any particular challenges that you are facing right now using AI?
There are plenty of like technical open questions. I mean, Aaron spoke really well to the notion of hallucination. By the way, I completely agree, Aaron, with what you shared of like that problem is being addressed pretty actively. If you're thoughtful about what you train it on, if you have, humans in the loop in the right places, if you have like feedback mechanisms that'll spot things that aren't quite right so that you can, get on top of them. Like it's this notion of hallucination is very real today, but I feel like a year or two from now, in many cases, that'll be a problem of the past. So interestingly, beyond some of the like technical issues or open questions using AI in HR use cases, I think the other side of the coin for in the challenge space is actually around like the human piece, right? It's around the like leading through change with a team with a fairly new, especially with the generative form of AI, like a fairly new technology or one that's like people are really navigating for the first time over the last year. That can be incredibly scary for folks. There's so much to learn. Like for anyone, even doing stuff adjacent to this space is just like an avalanche of things to know and try and test and what have you. And that can be exciting for some folks. It can be incredibly intimidating for others. And so in addition to all of the technical challenge, we spend a lot of time thinking through the human side of orienting a workforce not just to the skills needed to apply AI in our daily work, but also to work through a lot of the very like understandable questions that folks have, including the one, Qasim, that you led off with around, am I learning this to make me better at my job, or am I learning this now, but my job's going away later? And management teams, right, all over the world, like are trying to figure out the answers to those questions such that they can be really clear with their teams. And in some cases, right now, some of the best guidance that I have received and some of the best guidance that I give to folks working through this with their companies is sometimes the answer is we don't know yet. And I think it's one of the most confidence inspiring things you can say. It's also one of the most honest things that you can say. If you can say, hey, it's a great question about how AI is going to influence how this team does its work a year from now. We don't know the answer to that yet. But then finish the sentence, right? Which is like, how are we going to find out? And when can you expect to hear a little bit more? If you can do that, like that's, reasonable, folks are reasonable. It's like folks understand this is so new and that we don't have it all figured out yet. What I think folks are really looking for is, does my leader, does my CEO or whomever like know the difference between the things that we think we understand and things we don't? And does the team have a plan to develop an approach to these things, in a reasonable amount of time?
One thing I'd love to add on the we don't know yet, because that's a scary question, right? Because it leaves someone's psychology to kind of fill in the blank. I'm a super nerd, so I kind of looked to history on this one. When we created the steam engine, folks literally would break into factories and try and beat them up because they thought they were going to destroy the labor force and no one was going to have a job anymore. Instead, we got the weekend and the entertainment industry, both of which I'm a big fan of. The word processor was going to cause massive unemployment because you no longer needed, typists. Hasn't happened. So every time we have had one of these technological, sort of Newtonian shifts from, a big step function, there's always been the same fear. Pretty consistently, it is netted out that, yes, people need to retool, but there is a more exciting future for those same humans. And so, I mean, to your previous point, Brandon, like, yeah, there's still a change curve to that. You need to manage through that change with, humanity. But like, I think history, like this could be the exception, but so far we've been pretty consistent on the world has been net better and workers' lives have been net better every time one of these things has happened. And, people still have jobs.
Yep, makes sense. I think people that say this time is different, just to play devil's advocate here, what are your thoughts on that? Considering that we've been on kind of like a linear curve since the dawn of time, but now if things start moving digital, then it's Moore's law. Everything doubles every single year, which means if AI is performing a task every year, it's gonna get twice as good, but humans get better in the linear terms. Whereas if you look at the industrial revolution or anything else, that was still kind of on the linear curve, right?
I think that's somewhat debatable, right? You can go back to, humans grow geographically, but food grows linearly. And somewhere in the 1700s, we're supposed to run out of food. So far, we're doing pretty good. I think we're 5 billion more people since then. The amount of information that existed up until like probably, the early 1800s is created on a daily basis on my personal phone. There's been a number of these things where like we have sort of adopted to an abundance environment and we've emerged really well and actually surprisingly quickly. Try and go back to what would happen. I'm old enough to remember before a mobile phone was more of a computer and you actually used it to make phone calls. Like I couldn't go back, and I don't know that, my life is worse because of it. Maybe my phone, that would be the exception. But like, I do think that there will be a change curve and some folks will get vibrated by that and they'll feel some anxiety and, maybe some folks will not want to retool and that may be hard for them. But I do think I don't think this is any different than, the wheel or the combustion engine or the computer or the mobile device or the mouse or like, I think this is just the next version of that. And I think for folks that are probably, in their early to mid 30s, they just haven't seen one of those. We probably got to see one with the mobile phone revolution if you're a little bit older.
Yep. Makes total sense. And then last question from Brandon, and then I think we can just move to Q&A from the audience if they have any questions. We'll take one or two of those. Brandon, did you have something to add here?
Only that, one of the things that struck me most particularly with generative AI and like the chat or natural language interface that, so many folks are playing and building with these days is from an access and inclusion perspective. I think this is a big deal. I think this is a huge deal. And I say that not conceptually, but just seeing how even folks on my own team or folks in my own family are using it. It is remarkable what you can learn, what you can create, what you can puzzle through using generative AI with this, chat-based or natural language front end. And again, including things like what I talked about earlier, being able to, take a piece of intense academic literature and refactor it so that everyday folks can really understand it. Like it is, there you spoke, Qasim, earlier about like potential for bias and like absolutely, like should your average company be using a broadly trained AI model to make things like hiring decisions or who to promote? Like we're not doing that at my company. I'll tell you that much right now. And maybe we'll never do it, right? That but the bottom line is, for so many of these other use cases, it is kind of broadening the tent so that more folks can participate or engage with content or learning in the mode and the time and the place and the language, that really speaks to them. And I haven't seen, before I was doing, people work in technology companies, Qasim and Aaron, I worked in education. And I haven't seen a darn thing before this that like broadens access to learning and personal development like what we're seeing right now.
I
Definitely
want to plus one that, and I think there's two populations that I have personally seen really blossom with this. One is folks that are just entering the workforce because their ability to have access and to have it distilled and ask, frankly, when we were all coming into our jobs, you're going to ask a bunch of dumb questions or they're going to feel dumb, but you can get great answers to them. And then also for folks that are sort of on the like less technical, maybe the towards the middle end of their career, because all of a sudden things like, I don't know SQL, I'm too whatever to learn SQL. I can ask a question of an LLM and get like pretty damn good SQL back. And so it has been in that way incredibly democratizing to populations that would have, whether they would have been marginalized or not, they would have felt not included.
Definitely. And just to add on there, like, so we recently launched like Talently AI about a month ago. We have over 1,000 companies signed up so far, and one of the biggest reasons we launched it was to actually remove bias. So all the so it's an AI interview agent that can conduct live conversational interviews for any role in the world. But the key factor there is inclusivity. So all the answers and all the analysis it does is based on the content or the answers of the candidate giving the interview, rather than their skin color, where they're coming from, their accent, and all of that stuff is removed. And we just, make sure there's no bias there. So anyways, I think we are out of time. So we couldn't take audience questions. But thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being part of this. This was super enlightening for me, for the audience, and yeah, looking forward to staying in touch with you. And congratulations on all the great job you guys are doing at Deel and Zapier.
It was a pleasure, Qasim. Important topic. Thanks for making space for it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Bye.